Welcome to Familypreneur, the podcast for parent entrepreneurs
raising kidpreneurs.
It's time for your weekly dose of inspiration and actionable tips to build your business and find better balance, all while strengthening your family. And now we'd like to introduce your host.
She's my mom and thebomb.com,
Meg Brunson.
Hey there, welcome to episode number 101 of the Familypreneur podcast. If you are a brand new listener, I want to welcome you and thank you for tuning in today. And if you are a returning listener, welcome back. And I'm excited to have you here too. I would love to encourage you to hit the subscribe button on your podcast player so that you get every single one of our episodes as soon as they are released, especially because this episode is kind of a prequel to next Friday's episode. So I do hope that you will listen to this one as well as next week's episode. Now, on Fridays, we talk about my weekly reflections. These reflections could be related to business, to entrepreneurship, to marketing, to family. It just kind of depends what's on my mind this week. And like I said, we've got a couple that are connected coming up. So today, I want to talk about a little bit of both, a little mixture of family and business. And the topic I want to discuss is involving our kids in the internet side of business. So involving them in our blog storytelling, in our podcast storytelling, in our marketing images and videos, making the decision about how much of your children to show, whether that's actual visuals showing or just stories and information about your kids. How much do we release into the world? And as parents, we can be in total control of how much of our own personal information is leaked out there into the internet, right? Because we make those own decisions. We decide how much of our story we want to tell. But our kids don't have that luxury. So we as parents have to make those decisions for them and involve them in the process as much as possible. Now, my friend Allison, you may remember her from episode number 22 of the Familypreneur podcast. I did interview her a while back now, probably about a year ago, but I was talking to Allison and she does this really well. So she is a mom of two adopted kiddos, and adoption and the whole adoption process has played a big part in her life. And it's a big part of her brand, but she also recognizes that so many of her stories aren't really hers, not 100%. They're her kids' stories, and she's just been impacted by them. So she does a really great job of communicating with her children to ask permission before she shares their stories. And this is something that I really, really value that I took away from Allison. And I've been trying to implement it more in my life as I am sharing so many stories that are related to my kids. Now, for the most part, the stories that I share, I consider to be pretty benign, right? Visiting the Easter Bunny, things like that. But sometimes it crosses a line into potentially embarrassing. So one of those stories was the story of Alana putting on her makeup, right? And she kind of messed up her makeup, and we talked about that in a previous episode. So with things like that, I talk to the kids first. I want to find out if they are embarrassed by the story, or even if I take it a step back with Alana in her video, we watched the video together and I confirmed her permission to publish it despite the fact that she made a mistake when she was applying her makeup, and it was a makeup tutorial. So I asked her permission. Do you still want to publish this despite the fact that you made a mistake? And we talked about the pros and cons, right? Like, it could be embarrassing, but it could also help humanize you. Everybody makes mistakes. People might get a chuckle out of it, but they're not laughing at you. They're laughing with you. So we talk about these things. And, she agreed that it was a silly mistake. So in instances like that, we talk to our kids. And then periodically, I like to keep a pulse on things. So I ask them periodically if they're still okay with being, on my website and in my pictures. And they love sharing pictures online. So that stuff's not an issue with me. And we do our due diligence to ensure that they're kept safe as far as privacy concerns go. But then things took another turn. So recently, we experienced a big deal, a big issue, and it involved one of my kiddos. And I instantly knew, maybe not instantly, but I knew a couple days later that this was something I really wanted to talk about on the podcast. But this goes beyond embarrassing. All right. So the story, well, yes, it could be embarrassing. I just think it's a different level of embarrassment. And so I wasn't sure if I was going to share it. I wasn't sure if I even wanted to suggest it to my daughter because it's that level, right? So I did decide to have the talk with her. I think that this podcast is a really important avenue for me to talk about the things that are going on in my life and help people understand that other people are going through difficult things too. And this is a topic that I know other people deal with, and I know other people may encounter it at some point. So I did want to discuss it. I went to my daughter and we had that talk. And she immediately said, it was fine. Go ahead, talk about it. That's fine. I don't care. I don't know why it's a big deal. I don't care. You can go ahead and talk about it. That was her reaction. But here's the thing. As an adult, as a grown-up, I also know that her opinion may change. And I know that this is a big deal, that this is a serious topic. And there's kind of 3 parts to the story I want to tell. This is the first part, right? Like the background. The next part is her story, is what happened to her and how that impacted me. And then the third part is my story. So what I decided to do is break that one story that could be one episode into 3 pieces. And I'm doing this for an important reason. I'm doing this because I told her that at any moment I would remove her episode. So if she decides that she's no longer comfortable with the fact that that story is out there, that I will remove it. And we talked about, people won't necessarily forget it, but I can remove it so that other people won't be able to listen to it. And she agreed that that was fine too. Like I said, right now she doesn't even care, but I just want to give her that ability to change her mind in the future. So I will not be telling you exactly what that topic is, because I want to protect her privacy if she does ever decide she wants it taken down. Just as I'm not telling you which daughter it is for the same reason. However, I would love for you to join me next week. I can tell you that this is a topic that is relevant. It is important to all children. It's related to, honestly, one of the parents' worst nightmare type situations. And it's something that I went through recently. And we want to share the story with you. So I encourage you to tune back in next Friday and allow me to tell her story, as well as how it impacted our family and how it impacted me personally. And I hope that it'll be helpful for everybody. If you are a business owner, and when it comes to your own business, I would love for you to keep this episode in mind, to consider how you are allowing your children to show up in your branding, in your business, in your content, and consider asking their permission and maybe even giving them a pulse check every once in a while to make sure it's still okay that they are involved in the process. Of course, we're going to use our, due diligence, our common sense to not post anything that would be too embarrassing or incriminating or anything like that. But I feel like it's really important that I want my kids to feel comfortable and confident and secure with the information that I'm sharing with the world. Thank you so much for listening today. I know it's been kind of a funny episode because I alluded to so much we're going to talk about next week, but I do hope you will join us. It's really important to me. And in the meantime, feel free to join us in the Familypreneur community where we are having conversations all the time about topics that relate to being a parent, being an entrepreneur, and redefining balance by blending family and entrepreneurship. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, and I can't wait to see you next week. Bye.
Bye. Till next week.